Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And today's talk is all about tax nerd debt relief. And with that, I've got Morgan Anderson. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. She helps a lot of high income earners avoid um, that unexpected tax bill that we all dread. And she's got a fantastic personality, great energy, and I'm happy to welcome her to the show. So, Morgan, welcome.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my message about all things with tax debt. And believe it or not, it hits most people at one point in their life or another. It really does. It tends to send people on their heels a little bit, going, oh my gosh, what do I do? And the center of my information is that there is always a solution. You just need to know what to do, right, to get there. So that's my area of expertise for over the last 24 and a half years. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's interesting because a lot of doctors, lawyers, attorneys, like accountants, all these they need that tax because we just filed our taxes and it's quite an ordeal. It's like very time consuming and expensive, and then you
Mhm.
pay these bills and you never don't really see any return. So kind of talk about receiving that unexpected tax bill, what to do initially, how to handle it, how to reach out. Talk about that.
All great topics. Absolutely. So, first of all, I don't know about you, but usually most of my clients have said when they start getting bills from the IRS, first of all, they're afraid to open the mailbox because they have a feeling it's coming.
Yeah.
But when they see the envelope, they start kind of quaking in their boots. They feel like, oh gosh, they're getting called to the principal's office.
Yeah.
You know, they envision these people showing up at their front door with a 1950s fedora and an overcoat with a badge and a gun, saying, I'm going to take your firstborn child.
Uh,
And it's very intimidating. It makes your heart start racing, and people just don't know what to do. First things first, slow down and breathe, right? Like it's a piece of paper. I know it causes a lot of panic, but there's always a solution. So first thing first is read the notice and see what it actually says.
mhm.
It could be, hey, they found a simple error on your tax return. It could be an error in your benefit. It could be a bill, right? It could be a notice of audit. Don't panic. The
Mhm.
worst thing you can do is take that bill or that note and throw it in the back of your drawer and fall into what I call ostrich syndrome, which is where you bury your head in the sand and say, well, if I don't look at it, if I don't think about it, if I don't get energy towards it, it's just going to go away. Because that's one of the worst things you can do with an IRS or state tax bill is try to ignore it and think it's going to get better, because it just doesn't. You get penalties and interest added on. It's just best to say, okay, you know what, this stinks, but we just need to start figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Once we get to that initial stage, there's a lot of just kind of strategize, get your, calm your amygdala and then start strategizing and planning. So the you always I love this idea. You have this all rule number one, there's always a solution. And so the other question most people listening now is like, why do most people end up in this situation beforehand? Is it poor planning, bad accounting, bad record keeping? Why do they end up in that situation?
If I catch it all and say yes, it seems like in the last 5, 6 years, the common tax rules have changed. There's a lot of people who, if they're paid W-2, they claim, the correct number of withholdings, but there's different brackets within those holdings now that kind of change the rules.
Uh-huh.
And first time those new rules went into place, my husband and I ended up with a bill on our annual tax return. It was like, oh my gosh, but we have withholding, but there's new categories, and it just seems like no matter what the intentions are, at some point you're going to end up with a deficit with a bill.
Uh-huh.
And it could be just if you're self-employed, not realizing that you made as much money as you did, right? I mean, that catches a lot of entrepreneurs aback a little bit when they get their 1040 from their accountant or their CPA at the end of the year and they go, oh my gosh, I owe $15,000. I didn't know I made that much money. Or I
Uh-huh.
made estimated tax payments throughout the year and didn't realize it wasn't enough. Or I had children that I was claiming as deductions. Well, now they're in school full time and I don't get the daycare expense, right?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things. So, first place to start is really have a great relationship with your CPA, with your accountant. If you're self employed, check in with them every other month throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
Make sure they see your financial records and they can better guide you that way. I have a lot of friends who are CPAs and enrolled agents who do tax returns, accountants, and they say it never fails. I have probably 25% of my clients that I don't hear from all year.
Uh-huh.
And then when it comes to filing season, they give me stacks of records and say, what do I do? What do you mean? How do I? Oh, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So being proactive with the financial management in your world is the best place to start. Second of all, if you do end up with a bill, don't hide from it. Sit down, take a look at it, see what you can do. Because, like you said, Chris, there's always a solution. My book is actually titled that, Tax Debt Rule Number One. There is always a solution.
Uh-huh.
You just need to start taking steps to address it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then one thing that I have is I look at my records daily. I keep a accurate track, P&L and then very proactive, like just like tax planning for next year starts today.
Mhm.
You're
Yes,
and you're paying there's always setting aside tax amount for paying the IRS. There's death and taxes. Don't mess with the IRS. Those types of things. And so then there's also a lot of entrepreneurs. They're like, yeah, I made I mean a tax bill may be a I don't want to call it a badge of honor, but it could be that you're making significant amount of money, and then a lot of them pour it into their business and don't portion for taxes and things like that. So,
right.
what is the most common question you get from clients when you first speak with them?
Oh boy. Okay. So the first question I inevitably get is, will I go to jail? That is, I'm serious. And it could be, I hear that from business owners who have payroll tax debt. They may owe 150,000. Will I go to jail? No. I hear it from the individuals who owe 30,000 on their tax returns. Will I go to jail? No, 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 no.
Yeah.
So to put it in perspective, only about 500 people go to jail at the federal level related to tax debt.
Uh-huh.
Okay. These are the egregious ones, right? Like Wesley Snipes, I think Willie Nelson, you know. These are people who have a tax debt, who refuse to address it,
Uh-huh.
refuse to become compliant with their current tax obligations. So it is only the most egregious situations where you're going to see any threat of handcuffs tied to a tax bill. It always amazes me, and I can always hear it coming, right? And
Uh-huh.
it's just because people are panicked. They don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And it's again that image that the IRS and the state tax agencies have done a very good job of cultivating in our society. Don't mess with us because we're going to come after you with both guns loaded, right?
Yeah.
And it's a viable fear. It's a viable concern, but it is extremely, extremely rare. In my 24 and a half years of doing this,
Uh-huh.
I've never had a client even come close to being threatened to go to jail. Imagine how would you feel? That would probably be a concern for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same person that told me, it's interesting because they say that you know you're more likely to go to jail not paying the IRS than you are to go to jail for, committing murder, something like this kind of that's kind of the
Yeah,
joke.
that kind of seems to be the case anymore, right? But yeah, there are so many levels that the state and the federal government have to go through.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's really like the absolute last thing that they ever want to have happen is to even have to threaten that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they give copious amounts of opportunities to solve the debt before it gets that far.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I have two more questions is, what types of options are available to taxpayers with the debt? And then also, there's all these schemes where it's like, settle your debt with the IRS.
Mhm.
Are those legit or are those scams? Don't get yourself in that position in the first place, but
Yeah.
what should listeners be wary of, because all these scams.
Boy, that is so let's start with the scam first.
Yeah.
I I've been in this industry. This is all I do is tax debt resolution. And during the course of my career, I've seen a lot of tax resolution mills come about, and then the IRS gets complaints about them and they go in and shut them down. Like two really big ones that happened
Uh-huh.
within the last 25 years were J.K. Harris
Uh-huh.
and Ronnie Deutsch, and they would promise, and I'm so sorry, I don't mean to name drop, but these were two big federal cases of tax resolution mills that the IRS caught
Uh-huh.
not doing what they were charging clients to do, and
Uh-huh.
they got shut down.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of companies out there who tout the Fresh Start program. Hurry up, you better take advantage of it because it's going to stop soon, which is bogus.
Yeah.
It's federal law. They're not going to until the resolution option laws change.
Uh-huh.
That Fresh Start program initiative stays in place. So if anybody's pressuring somebody with the you better act on it right now or else it's going away, that's a load of garbage. Same thing with the offer and compromise promotions that you hear. There's always a commercial of somebody standing in front of a beautiful two-story house saying, "Oh, I owed the IRS $200,000 and I hired this company and they settled it for 5,000."
Uh-huh.
Well, that sounds good. And you can truly have that be an option if you qualify for it. But
Yeah.
what they don't tell you is to qualify for settling at $5,000 on 200,000 of debt,
Uh-huh.
you have to be making close to minimum wage, right? Or have a lot of dependents, and there's no private school education, there's no college school bills that you're paying, you have one family vehicle. You have to be close to that poverty level, or
Uh-huh.
have expenses that are reasonable, that are necessary for health and welfare,
Yeah.
that take up all of the income that you earn. And you can't have any equity in that big, beautiful house standing behind you in the commercial, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're living beyond your means, they're going to say, no, adjust your means. We're not going to settle it
Yeah.
just because you want to have a beautiful house with a $4,500 mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Now, on the other side, we have been successful with offers and compromise. You just have to know what you're doing. You have to know your client's financial condition before you even head down that path.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We have a couple that we just got offer and compromise settlements on. They owe $380,000 in past due income tax, and
Wow.
we're settling it. They're both entrepreneurs, but they're, as with everything in this economy, they've been struggling. They have a
Yeah.
couple of kids that are school age. They have two older vehicles. They don't have any investments. They barely make ends meet. We were able to get a total offer and compromise figure of 18,000 to
Oh, wow.
settle 380,000, but it's taken a year to get there,
Wow.
right? There are a lot of companies that, hey, you're an offer and you're an offer and you're an offer, and it's just sales talk,
Uh-huh.
right? What we do differently is when a client reaches out to us and says, "Hey, I have a tax situation," we say, "Okay, you know what? Let's investigate it. Let's pull the records from the tax agencies that you owe. Let's sit down and talk about what you would look like on paper, because that's the way the IRS and the states will evaluate a taxpayer for a resolution option." So we go through and do our due diligence before we even commit to saying, "You're an offer and compromise," or, "You know what, you're going to be an installment agreement and we'll try to go after the penalties
Mhm.
to get those forgiven." I mean, it's you need to look at the sales tactics of the companies. Every company has them. Every company needs to say, "Hey, we're the best for you," right? I mean, you're selling your services, but just listen to your inner voice. If they're in a rush, if they're pressuring you, probably not the best one out there.
Mhm.
There's a lot of CPA offices that have expanded their services to handling tax debts.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, but it's just knowing if it's within their realm, if it's something they even want to do.
Mhm.
It's, do they have experiencing handling that level and that type of tax, whether it's payroll tax or income tax or sales tax?
Yeah.
You want to make sure they've got experience with it and it's something that's within their comfort zone. If not, there's tax debt resolution specialists who are very credible, like our our firm. There are several of them out there. You just need to slow down and do your due diligence. Now, the other question you had asked me is, what are the options? There's a lot of them. There really are.
Mhm.
First things first, is the debt valid? Do you think filing an amended tax return would address the debt? Do you think there was an error made on your tax account? That's something we're handling right now for a sole proprietor. They had converted to being an LLC and got a new EIN, and they never closed out the old one. Well, there's all kinds of substitute returns because they never closed out the old filing.
Uh-huh.
So right now we're working on correcting that. There's, you can look at bankruptcy, but I wouldn't recommend it unless it's a dire situation. There's different types of installment agreements, seasonal ones. If you have a payroll tax,
Mhm.
and let's say you're a landscaper, right? And you owe $80,000 in unpaid payroll taxes, and your busy season is really May to October. We can set up payments that are higher in May through October and then lower in your slower period to accommodate the seasonality of your business. There's penalty abatement requests that you can request. If you're looking to sell a property that has a tax lien tied to it, we can subordinate the tax lien or discharge the tax lien. There's a lot of different options. So it just depends on each taxpayer's unique situation.
Yeah, I love that. People, how can people reach out to you and check your services out, etc.?
Sure, go to our website. It's Golden Lion Tax Solutions, and we have testimonials on there. We try to get most of our testimonials from actually the CPAs, accountants, or bookkeepers that we've worked with our clients, because they know what we're doing. We can't just kind of slide past them and have them think that we're the most amazing resolution firm, right? They know their side of it, they know the tax side, and that's why we feel that their testimonials carry a little bit more weight. But you can look at our blogs. I write a blog every week. And we have a database of, I think, about 80 blogs on there right now of pretty much any topic that applies to you or your situation.
Uh-huh.
You can give us a call at 833 Lion Tax and route to me. You can send us an email. There's a bunch of different ways. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find our company on LinkedIn and Facebook. We're pretty active. We're here. We just want to help people understand that if there is a tax bill situation, you could get a tax bill because of an inheritance, right? There's always a solution. Just don't ignore it.
For all the audience, let's thank Morgan for coming on and check out her book and her resources. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris, for having me. I really appreciate it.